Are you asking the lost to be the missionary? Hey, I'm Pastor Matt, here with your Missionary Pathway Mission Insight. And if you find these insights helpful, click like and subscribe, share it out with somebody else that needs it, and consider becoming a Kairos Catalyst. As a Kairos Catalyst, you make free trainings and mission insights like this possible. So if you'd like to learn how to become a Kairos Catalyst, visit thekairosnetwork.com/give, and you can find out how you can become a Kairos Catalyst. So back to our question. Are you asking the lost to be a missionary? You know, this question comes up all the time when we do the Missionary Pathway, especially in that first session. And the way that I kind of answer that question is like this. Well, what is a missionary? Well, a missionary is somebody that steps into a culture and a context. They learn that culture, context, and language in order to be able to share the gospel in the language and the culture and the context of the people. So I ask you a question. In your church, who's the missionary? Well, if you think about it, the missionary is the lost person that you're inviting in. See, you're asking them to meet Jesus, but you're doing that by asking them to come into your culture, your context, and learn your language to hear the gospel. So in your church, who's the missionary? I've been challenged by this, especially when it comes to a culture where less and less people are coming through the front doors of the church. And we've done insights on that in the past, but the reality is most people aren't coming into a local church to meet Jesus. You can open the doors wide, you can have the best preaching and teaching, you can have the coolest music. The reality is the world's not coming in, but that's okay because we were always the ones that were called to be the missionaries, the ones that were called to go out. So what does it look like for us to stop asking our lost friends and neighbors to be the missionary and for us to step into our calling of being the missionary to our communities and the places we live, work, learn, and play? Well, here are a couple insights. Number one, who's learning the language? Always ask yourself who's learning the language. The reality is it's our job to learn the language of the culture around us. It doesn't mean you have to agree with it. It doesn't mean you have to kind of change your views based on it. But in order to reach people around you, you have to understand the language that people are speaking in. And by learning the language, it teaches you how you can share the gospel in the language of people. And that's always the way God's done it, right? That's why he didn't write the whole New Testament in Hebrew to begin with. He wrote it in Koine Greek. Why Koine Greek? Because that was the common language of the time so that more people could hear and understand the gospel. The other thing that's really important is don't outsource the mission. Expecting people to adjust to your worship schedule and styles makes them the missionary and not you. You need to kind of ask the question of, okay, what are the rhythms in the culture that we're in? When is the best time to try and connect? And you need to adjust your schedule to connecting with the culture and not expect the culture to adjust its schedule to connect with you. Next, contextualize without compromise. This is really important because one of the issues that comes up with contextualization is over contextualization, where we just kind of begin to change the truth of the gospel to make it more palatable and applicable to our culture. Here's the problem. When you change the truth of the gospel, you no longer have the powerful truth of the gospel. The reality is, if you want to connect with the culture, you have to contextualize, but you have to contextualize without compromise. What does that mean? Maintain the integrity of word and sacrament. Maintain the integrity and the truth of the gospel message, because here's the reality. No matter what language you speak the gospel in, the gospel can be offensive, but it's that offensive gospel that actually connects people to Jesus and saves people. So even if the gospel's offensive, you need to realize that that's the gospel you should preach, because that's the gospel that will change people's lives. So when you're sharing the gospel, do not compromise on the things you're contextualizing. And then finally, reclaim the missionary role. Remember that like Jesus went out and he met people where they were and helped them connect with him to bring them to the gospel. And that's the opportunity we have as Christians. We need to spend less time asking the question, how can we get more and more people to come into our places and our spaces? And we need to begin asking the question, how can we equip more of our people to go out to their places and spaces, to learn how to share the gospel where they live, work, learn, and play? Because that is really the heartbeat of this network. The reality is 7 out of 10 Christians have just never been trained in how to share the gospel in any form or fashion. And so one of our goals here at the network is to help provide resources and training for you to be able to take the people in your church and help them become the missionaries they were always called to be. So if we can help you out with any of those resources like the Missionary Pathway or learning to do Discovery Bible Study or the Bible Reading Toolkit, we have tons of resources to help you do that. Simply go to thekairosnetwork.com to learn more and to figure out how you can get connected with some of those resources. And until next time, it's a joy hanging out with you right here on Mission Insights.